Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I am the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. I'm also an arts reporter for Georgia Voice. The new film Aileys is a documentary about legendary dancer and choreographer Alvin Ailey. It opens in theaters July 23rd and opens in Atlanta shortly after that. I am so happy to be having a discussion today with the director of this fine film, Jamila Wignot. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, and hello, Atlanta. Yay.
For talking to me. I really enjoyed this film, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you, how did this film come up for you?
So I am lucky that this film really found me.
Okay.
I was approached by Insignia Films, the production company who produced it, and Judy Kinberg, one of our executive producers. They were familiar with my work because we all come out of public media. And they just said, we would love for you to direct a film about Alvin Ailey. And, I was like, what? Amazing. And said yes immediately. And we began the process of trying to court the company and set off on a journey.
Great. So when did you first experience Alvin's work?
I was actually in college. The Black student group on campus got some free tickets, and I didn't know anything about the company at all, and went down to the Boston Wang Center and had really a life-changing experience in the sense that I was introduced to dance and this company that I am still a fan of obviously today. Just a very powerful, visceral moment of this just extraordinary beauty and technical prowess and joy on the stage.
Alvin Ailey, you could, I'm sure you know this, you could do 7 movies on Alvin Ailey and not talk about it. How did you decide what to focus on?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, our original cut of just his audio, I think, was running at like 3 hours. And my editor and I were like, maybe we just make a podcast of all of this. It was very, very, very hard to let go of, things that we love in his voice. He made over 70 choreographic works in his lifetime. So just knowing from the beginning that there's no way to do justice to his full rep, not to mention, all the other dances that are staged there. So, I think at some point we just realized that what we were doing was making a portrait of an artist coming into his own. And I described the film as a story of becoming, really watching a dance work in the making in present day, and then a young person finding their way to the form that would be their part of their expression. So sort of every choice had to be about how does Alvin find his way to dance, and then what does he do with it?
Sure. There's an incredible amount of research that you've done for this movie, including some terrific video archives. How hard was all that to acquire and be able to get the license to use?
Yeah, that is always the challenge of an archival film. We had the great fortune that the Aileys company has an extraordinary trove of archives at the Library of Congress. So we knew about that collection. But we then had to find, other material that had been filmed, of the dance works that the company had done over the years. And also, obviously, all of the archive that we used to bring Mr. Aileys' kind of life experiences to life. So all of that was, a deep dive, and I give full credit to my team, my producer, Lauren DeFilippo, and my archival producer, Rebecca Kent, for really chasing down all those leads and getting it all in. And then the pandemic made everything frighteningly slow. And so it was, the real pain was knowing, we know this material exists, and then we're building scenes and then waiting for the dance materials in particular to come in. And then you have to alter the scene in order to, because now you have the actual visual material to work with. So it was all unideal, but we got through it.
There are some amazing interviews in this film, dancers, colleagues. How did you, how were you able to get everybody involved in this?
Yeah, I think there was a real, delicate process of access that we all understood from the very beginning. When we approached the company, we knew that they had to have a deep trust in us to give us access to everything that they have, especially the audio recordings that we used that have become the kind of foundation of Mr. Ailey telling his own story. And it's just really putting in the time. They didn't owe us anything. None of the people owe me anything, and I needed to, listen to them and take their story seriously and receive their perspectives. And so there was a lot of, meetings and conversation that happened before we ever sat down to film. And I think that's just how I approach documentary filmmaking in general, but a huge part of this particular craft.
What would you say surprised you the most in doing your research?
I think what surprised me is Mr. Ailes' kind of elusiveness, even to the collaborators he was closest to, that deep need of a private space for him, some separation between this grind of being a public facing figure and kind of needing that privacy at the same time, the duality in that. I guess that's the duality, right? Like, he's this extraordinarily generous figure who seems to beam a spotlight on people and allows them to kind of flower and bloom in ways that they're eternally grateful for. But he didn't receive the same reciprocity. I think at some point he becomes such a towering figure, and as Masazumi Chaya says himself, people wanted to keep him there. Exactly. So it's a kind of, he built that, and then that sort of became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that surprised me.
Can you talk briefly, because again we could talk about this for 14 days straight. Can you talk briefly about Alvin's legacy and about all the doors he was able to open for other dancers, other people?
Yeah, I think he did that because as I said, from the very beginning of his company, that was something he was interested in. It's not just about me, Mr. Ailey, and what I want to do and what I want to say. If I can get something, then I want to allow this space to be used by other artists. And it's something that we tried to show in the film, the kind of sense of possibility he creates, so that a George Faison sees the Ailey Company perform and says, oh my God, I can dance, and I'm going to go dance for the Ailey Company. And also, towards the end of our film, that when there's an opportunity to pick choreographers for a national PBS broadcast of dance, he picks Bill T. Jones, who is doing a kind of dance that Mr. Ailey didn't always understand, and it wasn't his brand. Yeah. But he said, this guy's doing something interesting and amazing, and the nation needs to see it. And so that idea of kind of lifting up where he could was so important.
Alvin Ailey was a very private man. He didn't talk a lot about himself. He didn't talk about being gay, but how difficult was him to keep so much inside and not be able to talk about, how he really felt? How difficult was that for him?
I think that was hugely challenging. I also think it's something that we have to remember was like sort of, he's a creature of his own time in that way. And I think, he was out to everybody in the company, as Bill Hammond says, we knew he dated intermittently. He just never had a kind of single and only person that he dedicated himself to. And then, of course, in 1958, can he be an openly gay person and receive funding? Can he go on State Department tours as they're actually purging their departments of, any queer people within their ranks? I mean, I think that is a generation of people who found, he found his way to a community that didn't have a problem with his sexuality, but then he does not exist in a world that is going to embrace him in his entirety. And so, I think there's a real challenge of having to kind of live a double life in a way, and yet at the same time, not even being able to imagine a different kind of world. I mean, I think if he showed up today, he would be like, wow, so many things haven't changed, and yet there's possibility that didn't exist for him in the same way.
Do you find that, I mean, obviously, someone of my age is very familiar with Alvin. Do you find that today's younger generation knows as much about Alvin Ailey as they should?
No, I think that right now his name and his company have survived him, but his personal story hadn't. And that was also something that was so much a part of making this film, of wanting to kind of reconnect this extraordinary company with the vision of its founder and see, how it came into being. And also, I think wanting to create a story about him that did finally embrace him in all of who he was. I think for the gay community in particular, I don't think people immediately associate him with that, because it's not something that he associated himself with in his lifetime, and it didn't happen for a long time. So I really hope that he can be embraced by so many kinds of communities. And I hope that this film will allow people to say, like, oh no, he's also one of us, because it matters, it really matters.
I think we're close to running out of time. I have to ask you one more question. Obviously, the last year and a half has been, I imagine, so difficult as a filmmaker to have this great film that you want to get out into the world. Have you been able to actually see this in the theater yet with an audience?
I haven't seen it in a theater with an
Oh.
audience yet. So that is why the 23rd in July is going to be amazing for us. And for me in particular, I cannot wait to be in a room with other people,
Yeah.
sharing this experience. I think it's going to be glorious. I've had a couple outdoor screenings, but I think, movies are meant to be seen collectively in the dark. It's this beautiful ritual, and I think it's going to be spectacular.
It was like when my husband and I watched this on our TV and at the cinema stuff, I imagine, and we enjoyed it, but I imagine how amazing this is on a big screen with other people there just to take it all in. So
yeah,
the film is amazing. Thank you so much. Again, Aileys opens around the country July 23rd. It opens in Atlanta shortly after this. Jamila Wignot is the director. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good luck with the film.
Thank you.
Take a day. Bye.
Bye.